Good morning, guys.
Good morning, Rabbi.
Good morning. All right. All right. Pay Aleph, huh?
Morning.
Morning, Shlomo.
Rabbi, do you know yet what time tomorrow night?
Oh, so I just want to say the following: that being that Shavuos is coming, and we're going to lose 2
Let's
days.
do 3 pages, Saturday night and do Sunday.
And we're going to lose 2 days. So I'm going to try to do exactly what Mayan said, if we could. I want to maybe learn Motzoi Shabbos, Daf Pei Zayin or Daf Pei Ches. I want to see if we can get the 2 dafim that we're going to miss Thursday and Friday in sometimes this week. And if I can look it over today, then we'll learn a Motzei Shabbos. Guys, just to know that the Hashgacha Prat is, these 2 dafim are mamash about Matan Torah. The mamash Shavuos related. We learned them many times together on Shavuos in the shul. It's Agada to Gemara, which makes it harder, but let's try to do both. All right.
What time? What time, please?
So the same concept, maybe at 9:20, if we could. With the help of Hashem, we are learning Shabbos Daf Pei Aleph. We are continuing to learn. We have now the final full daf in the 8th chapter Hamoitzi Yayin regarding shiurim. We're going to have a figure regarding the teeth of the locks. Those the teeth on a key. We're going to begin the sugya of stones that people used to use in the times of Chazal for wiping oneself after using the bathroom. And this is related to Haitzah. Really, it's also related to Muktzah. Really, stones are Muktzah. But because of Kavod Habriyos, the Chachamim Lechatchila did not prohibit Mitzad Muktzah using these stones because of Kavod Habriyos. But they only gave that heter for the stones that are necessary. The sugya of Haitzah is also about Haitzah. Midoraisa is when you carry something that's necessary. Carrying less than the necessary, carrying something that in itself is not chashuv, is not in violation of a doiraisa. So the same shiur of how many stones is not included in the shiur muktzah for wiping oneself. That is the minimum amount of stones that only if you carry that will you be chayav for Haitzah. We're going to introduce both the concept of Godel Kavod Habriya Shadeches Loises Shabbat Torah. We're going to be learning about the concept of Tircha Yisera. Even when something really is not part of the Lamates Malachis, but if Chazal deem it extra exertion, Tircha Yisera, that is also something that one Midrabanan may not do on Shabbos. We're going to be learning about one may not relieve oneself on a freshly plowed field on Shabbos. Why is that? We're going to be learning about the Parpisa, flower pot that people mamish used to use in the times of Chazal for kaparis. We're going to prove that Rabbi Yochanan paskins like Rab Shimon regarding the davar she'ein mischaven, that it's completely mutter. And finally, this will be a sugya about things that people used to use to wipe themselves. If a person would use a broken piece of pottery, a shard to wipe themselves, that shard later can be used against them by a sorcerer, by a machashiv. And we're going to learn about various activities that makes the person open to kishuv. We're going to learn a Gemara, the way the Baal Shem Tov taught it, revealed that which we can do that will break the spell of a machashiv, which is really quite awesome, and a lot more. And with that, Chavra, let us start. We left off mamash on top of the daf, on daf Pei Aleph, on the Daleth by the new Mishnah.
Shlomo, please mute yourself.
Says the Mishnah, etzem, bone. Again, what's the minimum amount of bone that's considered chashiv? Ubemela, you'll be chayiv b'shoyeg chatos for carrying. Says the Mishnah, kedei lasois tarvad, enough bone with which you can make a tarvad, means a spoon. And as the Rambam in Perish HaMishnayis furthers, explains more, we're speaking about a certain small measuring spoon that was used commonly by doctors, dafka from bone. The bone needed for that, that's the minimum share. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, and as we have been learning, Rabbi Yehuda is the machmer. Interestingly, Rabbi Yehuda is the machmer because Rabbi Yehuda holds that it takes less of an item for it to be chashuv. Rabbi Yehuda is a machmer because Rabbi Yehuda is machshiv things easier, quicker. He holds it's a smaller share, and that is kadei lasos mimenu chaf, enough bone to make a lock from it. That you have to know how the locks looked, how they functioned, how they were in the times of Chazal. I'm sure that Rabbi Steinsaltz has gewaldige pictures of them. And as the Gemara is going to point out, that these locks, chaf, a lock was larger than the spoon. And this again will be, as we're following, that's going to be a problem because Rabbi Yehuda is the machmer, and we're going to further clarify the meaning of chaf in the Gemara. Schuch is what about glass? Enough to scrape the head of a weaver's pick. We learned about the weaver's pick. It was called shoivek just a few daf ago. In other words, when you have the warp threads on the loom already spread out on that weaving mechanism, so there were times that threads would overlap one on the other. I remember these concepts when my father owned machines, jacquard machines, rachel machines to make curtains. So the threads, right before they are woven, if they overlap one the other, then when it goes into the machine or then when it went into the weaver, it wouldn't come out perfect. So there has to be a mashgiach there making sure that no thread overlaps the other. So they had this pick that would make sure that each one is separated from the other. These picks then were made from wood, and you needed for the tip of the pick to be very small, like a pencil, because the space in between these warp threads were very little. And to sharpen that pick, that's the Reish HaKarkor, they used to use glass. That was like the pencil sharpener. So enough broken glass that it could be used to sharpen the Reish HaKarkor, that's already called chashuv, which is really a very relatively small amount. A pebble or a stone, how large do they have to be chashuv? We're not going into the other muksa aspect. Aside of muksa, we're speaking now about hoitzah. If a person wants to shoo away a bird, you want to send away a bird. So one of the techniques is you would take a pebble, you would take a shtickle stone, and we're not speaking about shooing them away because of noise, but shooing them away because they feel the heaviness of it, heavy enough that it chases away a bird. Rabbi Elazar Bar Yaakov says, no, that's not the shiur. Like Rashi says in the Mishnah that most times people don't need to use a pebble or a stone to shoo away, to chase away a bird. For that, it suffices to lift your voice, says Rashi. Yes, an animal, sometimes if you shout at an animal, the abehema is a habehema, he's not going to run away. There you have to throw something on him. So here again, it's a pebble or a stone large enough to shoo away, lizraik bebehema. Okay. So again, coming back to the first din in the Mishnah, the bone, Tanakama, Tarva, the spoon, Rabbi Yehuda, the chaf, the lock, and again, a lock would be larger in those days. Remember the shiur that Rabbi Yehuda, nafish. We have a klal that throughout these parakim, when we are speaking about shiurim, the rule is that shiur that Rabbanan is larger. Rabbi Yehuda has a smaller shiur. Rabbi Yehuda is the machmir. Rabbi Yehuda attributes chashivas to an item even when it is of a lesser amount. So Amarula, indeed, Rabbi Yehuda was not speaking about an entire lock, but he was speaking about chapei poisachas, the teeth, right, for the lock. Today you have both in the lock and in the key, right? You have these little protrusions, intrusions, and you have little pins. All of that used to be in the times of Chazal, maybe different, but the same concept. So the teeth of the locks were made out of bone. This is a very small amount of bone, enough bone to provide for you teeth for a lock. That's already chashuv. Regarding these teeth of locks, if they are standing by themselves, they weren't yet connected to any sort of keli. As they are, they're not yet considered a halachic utensil, and therefore to hidden amachaya tumantara, they are not even susceptible to becoming tamei. They're not a keli yet. However, the moment the moment they are affixed to the lock, now they are part of a lock. So now there are keli. If something tummy touches them, they become tamei. They are susceptible to tuma. However, if these teeth were not inserted in a stand-alone lock, but they were actually installed inside the gate itself, they are part of the door, which is part of karka. The shell gal, my friends, here means a gate. So before they are installed, then we already said they're not a keli, they're just pieces of bone. Even after you install it in the door, so now they're part of the door. And now the door, and they are installed with nails, they are properly installed. Before they are installed, they're not a keli. Now that they are installed in the door, well, now they are right there to hide because of the rule. They're not a keli. We already mentioned this concept of Rabbi Breish, even though we don't follow this, about the toivel and kalim, especially in the older times when people, the kalim, the electric water heaters, the water urns, they claimed would get ruined if you toivel it. So he was the one that said this concept that since they are only used when you connect the electricity cord into the wall, so he considered that it's mechubar lakarka, just like it's not susceptible to dinei tumah v'tara, it's also not included in the dinim of Tefilla kalim. Anyways, many don't rely on that. Now with the coronavirus, now that we don't yet have access to mikvahs, many indeed quoted that psak to be mated, not having to toivel certain electrical appliances in a mikvah. Okay, schuch glass. The Mishnah said enough glass can they ligroid, enough to scrape the head of the weaver's pick. Finally, we learned that, look at this interesting way of writing glass, not with a zayin, but with a samach. Sechuchis. In a brayso we learned what's the minimum amount, enough glass. Glass is very sharp to cut two warp threads that are on the loom at the same time. And as the Rishonim point out, the Braisa and the Mishnah are not arguing in how much glass do you need. They're using two different types of uses that people made out of glass. And for both side to make sharp the top of the pick, to sharpen the pick, side to cut two warp threads at once, you need actually the same exact amount of glass. Okay, as I state. Next, a pebble or a stone, says, and Abelazar says, not ba'oif, like Rashi says, ba'oif, no one used it to chase away a bird. You shout at a bird, it goes away. It's about getting rid of a behema. Amar Rabbi Yaakov, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, that to clarify, there are two reasons why an animal would run away. One is that you'll startle the animal. And one is not that you'll startle the animal, but he'll feel the impact. And obviously the impact, to feel an impact, it has to be a larger stone. For who shemar geshesba. Startle, just because it will startle an animal, that's not what the Mishnah is referring to. It has to be something heavier. Again, this is a typical shiur of Chazal. They're not telling you, like by us, how much volume, how much weight. It didn't work that way. They gave these concepts, and the kama shiurai. So now the Gemara has to further elaborate. Tanya Rabbi Yaakov Aimer, mishkal asar zuz, the weight of 10 zuz, which is relatively a large amount of weight. That's what he's trying to emphasize. Now you can startle an animal with lesser weight, and he might or might not run away. But to really get rid of him, to get rid of the animal, you have to throw a stone with the weight of 10 zuz. There's a Yiddish gleich vertel, al pitzachus, that if you want to get rid of as a person, a behema, lend them money. Lend the person money, especially if they don't have it to pay back. As patavenim for them, you have to lend them 10 zuz. Anyways, back over here. Zoinin. Zoinin is the name of an amoira. All the Midrash. Interesting why he's quoted here. We're starting a sugya, which is really very halacha l'maisidik. We're going to be speaking now and almost even into Daf Pei Beis about the stones or different items that people would use in the times of Chazal to wipe themselves after they relieve themselves. And we'll see there are many angles from which we will approach the sugya, beginning with Zoinen. Zoinen went into the Beis Medrash, and Amar Lahu, and he began by saying, Rabbi Isai, Avodim shel Beis HaKisei. Now the types of stones, they were not stones of nature. They were, on one hand, they were smooth, but at least one side at the edge was sharp. And they used, so to say, the sharpness of an edge to scrape off any extra, we have to speak clear, any extra excrement that could have remained on the body. And again, as we mentioned, that normally rocks are not a keli. Anything that is in their natural state wasn't made for any function yet. As we learned a little bit, the sugya of muktzah, it's not called muchan. It's not prepared. The opposite of that is muktzah. When it comes to these rocks, since they are needed, and this gives a lot of human dignity, that after a person relieves oneself, he can clean himself to the ability that they could. So the Chazal, not they were matir muktzah, they lechatchila were never goizer muktzah on such stones. This is a very important way of looking at it, as we'll apply this on Daf Pei Aleph on the base. So shiur and v'kama, Rashi says he asked two questions that they are mamish, two sides of the same coin. Shiur and v'kama means how many is a person allowed to take into the restroom for themselves. We're not speaking about carrying. We're speaking about a person who is in, let's say, even in a Reshus HaYachid, in their back house. You're allowed to take something from one part of your Reshus HaYachid to the other. There's a muktzah issue. How many stones are you allowed to take? And what's the issue? Because taking more than you need, there the Chachamim didn't say it's not muktzah. They only took away the muktzah for the kavod habriyas, for the amount of toilet paper. More than that is muktzah. Now, says Rashi, once we establish how many stones does an average person need to wipe themselves, that will be the minimum shiur for which you chayav oitzah. Because if you take less than that, then it's not chashuv yet. There's no function yet. So the same amount upon which we say more than that is muktzah, that amount will be the minimum amount for which you'll be chayav oitzah if you took it mireshus hayachid l'reshus harabim or vice versa. So what's the shiur? So the Chachamim over there in the Beis Medrash tells Zoinen that you need 3 stones. And the way it worked is that a person would begin by using the smallest stone, the first wiping, and the person would progressively use larger stones. Dafka from the smallest to the largest, that would be the best way of cleaning oneself. So the smallest stone should have the size of a kazayis, of an aleph. The next stone should have the size of an egg or of a nut. And the final is kebeitza. So it's 3, and he gave the shiur and on the seder of the stones. So Amar Lahu, so Zoinen didn't, he says, I don't understand. You're giving me shiurim, only that I can take him to the bathroom and speak about muktzah? Are you telling me that every time I go to the bathroom, I have to bring a scale or some sort of measuring instrument to measure the kazayis, the egos, the kebeitza? What, do I need a scale? It's too difficult for most people to get the shiurim right in the stones. And indeed, because of that challenge, they took another vote. They went around the chevra to see other opinions, and they came to a majority. That's called nimnu v'gamru. They counted. That means that they were discussing it, and they were actually counting the dayanim to follow a roiv, and they paskin that indeed you're not mechuyev to look at the sizes. You are allowed to take into the bathroom maloi hayad, a handful.
Can you ask that question about all the shiurim we learn around the gregeres and all the other shiurim? I mean, it's hard for people to measure anything.
Here we're speaking about a average person that's going into the restroom every time, and he needs to know halacha l'maisa, how many stones can he take with him. So say you can take 3 stones. To tell a person you can take only these 3 sizes. That makes it almost impossible. When it comes to Hilchos Shabbos, we're not telling anyone to be Mechal Shabbos. We're telling you don't do any of it. We're not advocating anyone to make Oitzah less than a Gregeres. If a person did it, now you have to find out what he did. Okay. So it says, Tanya Milant Rabbi Yossi Omer, indeed the same Kazai is Ke'egos Ukabeya, and Abshimin, but Rabbi Yossi Omer, in the name of his father, Now we see where this came from. It came from because someone asked the shaila and someone gave a psak, and then he challenged the psak. And as you know, normally the Baraisas don't record the story behind. Yeah, machlekes. One said this, and I'm sure Rabbi Yossi says Moloi Hayad. Weiter Tanach Rabbanon Gimel Avanim Mikur Zolois. The word Mikur Zolois is exactly the type of stone that people used to use. It was a sharp-sided stone. It was smooth on one hand, but then there was a certain edge to it that helped them scrape themselves. So says the Braisa Muter Lahachnes Lebeis Hakisei. Again, we're not speaking about Chotzah. We are speaking about the issue of Muktzah, that the amount needed is not included in the Gezerah Midrabanan of Muktzah and the Kama Shiyuran. So here, this Braisa is beginning with the premise that you can take 3. And this Braisa is also already accepting the rebuttal of Zoinen that you can't give Shiurim. Just give me how many and what's the size of all 3 of them, more or less Ke'egois. This is easier. Yeah, you're not telling a person you have to take a scale to make one this and one that and one this. It's all the same, more or less, the nut size. Right, so Rav Meir is giving us of the shiurim that we had above the middle size. Kazais is the smallest, Kabei is the largest, Kegel is the middle, and Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Kebeya. What will be interesting, my friends, according to this, that Rabbi Yehuda is the Mekel, correct? Rabbi Yehuda is the Mekel because he's giving you the largest size. Now here they are addressing Muktzah, but once you establish that a person needs 3 kibetza stones, size stones, to use, then any carrying of smaller, right, from Muktzah, if we're speaking about Avanim Mikurzalis, if we're speaking about Stama stone, then the Mishnah gave the shiur, Lizrek Babehema, or Lizrek Ba'oif, which is a smaller shiur. But this type of stone, indeed, Rabbi Yehuda over here holds of the largest shiur, which is the most lenient opinion in the Gehel Chaysaitza.
Rabbi, quick question just regarding the muktzah and these stones. Is there no ability to just designate a box of stones as these are the toilet paper stones? And then
very good question. Very good question. So the answer, okay, the Gemara is going to address it all. Let's get ahead of ourselves. That unlike nowadays, that people have a designated bathroom, then it was a lot more common that people went out to the field and they found a corner to relieve themselves. And even if you were to designate it in an area that most people use for a restroom, who says that when you'll get there, it's going to be available for you? So Benegeya, other items that people use during a meal, like toothpicks, there was an expectation that you should have prepared whatever you needed to take it out of the muktzah issue before Shabbos. And if you didn't, we'll get into this concept that if you didn't prepare from before, we're not going to say kavod abriyas that quick. But by a bathroom, it was common then that people felt they cannot prepare for it. They needed to know this is a stony area. Wherever I'll choose to relieve myself when I'll feel the need, I'll have those stones. And again, the question will be, how many can I carry? Let's go back. The Gemara is going to address. Omar Rav Papa, Omar Rav Ram Bar Papa, Omar Rav Chisda. K'machloikes kan, k'machloikes kan, kach machloikes be'esrei. We have in Sukkah a machloikes regarding the smallest shiur of a esrei. And Rav Meir Taka says a nut, mamish like here, that's the minimum size of an esrei. And the Tana Rabbi Yehuda says an egg. So as we see over here, we also find the same over there. Asks the Gemara, whenever you say that Chaim is Yankel's cousin. Chaim is Yankel's cousin means that Yankel is the Ikir. You begin with him, and then Chaim is his cousin. Chaim says, no. Yankel is my cousin. That's going to be the conversation back and forth over here. Hassan masnis and hachabraisa. So we don't say here is the machloikas, and then we say just like we find over here, the same thing we find in Esrog. It has to be the opposite because Mishnah and Braisa, Mishnah is always considered more authoritative. And Mishnah was also more known. Everyone knew the Mishnah by heart. So you had to word it differently. And the Gemara gives into that. Ella, kemachloikas be'esrog, which is the Iker, that's the point of departure. And everyone knows Rav Meir, Rabbi Yehuda, not an egg. Now we say to remember, kach machloikas kan, that the nut or egg, when again, the size of the 3 stones that is allowed. Amar Rabbi Yehuda, avoloi es hapayis. Avoloi hapayis means that you may not use payis to wipe yourself. What's payis? Amar Abzeira, karshine bavli yasa. pebbles of Babylonian earth. Babylonian earth in certain locations was very clumpy. And some people felt that they can use the earth itself, this clumpy earth, to wipe themselves. Nachamal earth, as we learned earlier in the Masechta, is also muktzah. So what he's saying is that since it doesn't serve the purpose of wiping oneself, it should not be used and it remains muktzah. We don't say that we're matter the stones, we're matter the earth. Pious, this type of earth, taka should not be used on Shabbos. As we'll see soon, and we'll see a little bit more on DAF Pei Beis. First of all, the extreme importance that if someone needs to relieve oneself, it's extremely unhealthy not to do so. Right? We learned that Amud HaChoizer. How many times have we learned this together? Amud HaChoizer can bring to hidraka and to other illnesses. So one of the techniques that they would use in order to help themselves, relieve themselves if they needed to, but it wasn't functioning, is that they would take a stone and they would physically massage their rectal opening or open it somehow, and that would be one of the ways that they would be able to relieve themselves. That's called to be mamashmesh with a tzroid. So says Rava that one is not allowed to be mamashmesh himself using a stone to open himself up the way it is done in the weekday. Now, why indeed may one not do that? Why is there a asur lamashmesh? And the answer is because the person, as we'll see in a moment, is going to be cutting hairs off his body. Cutting hairs of the human body, plucking out a hair, cutting out a hair is all included in the av of shearing, of geziza, and you may not do it. So the Gemara says, hold on. Now let me just explain something. The kavana is not to cut any hairs, right? But on the other hand, we're taking it as a given, and we can pass him like Rab Shimon. Dovashem is chaven is mutter. But it's taken as a premise that psik reisha, when a person would use a sharp stone to be mamashmesh their physical opening, they would force their opening open. That is something that for sure psik reisha would do geziza. Psik reisha, you're not allowed to do it. So the Gemara, on the other hand, challenges is listakein. On the other hand, not allowing you to do it at all brings the person into a sakana, like Rashi quotes. Right, he quotes from Talmud, but we just had that. I don't know whether it was in Shabbos or in Brachas. We learned about the Amud HaChoizer, and Rashi brings it all the way at the end of the narrow lines. Maybe other one day hidroikin, many people say is dropsy. Dropsy is a certain swelling that's caused because of fluid retention, and there's a big sakana to that. The answer is the Gemara, no. Rava didn't say you can't do it. Rava says you can't do it the way you do it in the week. In other words, kila'achar yad, you may do it kila'achar yad. Kila'achar yad, Rashi says, normally you grab onto a stone by putting the stone in between your thumb and your finger. No, hold the stone between your finger and your amma, between your index and your middle finger. And as we continuously learn that on a de'oraisa level, the moment you don't do something the way it's normally done, any malacha that's done shaloi kedarkoi, or here the lashon is kila'achar yad, already takes it down a notch. It's no longer asur midoraisa, it's only asur midrabanan. Now it's asur midrabanan. But now that you have a sakana involved, because of the sakana, the rabbanan waived their isur midrabanan. All Rabbi is saying is, don't do it the way you normally do it. Do it kila'achar yad. Amar Rabbi Yanai, im yesh makom kol hakisei meloi hayad. If you are going to a place that's designated to be used as a bathroom, as a latrine, so now you can take more than 3. Listen to this, because even though I won't need all of the pebbles that I fill my hand with, which is normally more than 3, but since people will use it after me, so I'm taking it weiter for kavod habriyos, Avos Yisrael, for you and for someone else. However, im lav, but if not, that means that no one else will use it aside of you. So then you know that you're only taking it for you. Then you cannot take the amount of malay hayad. Then you can only take 3. And how large should every stone be? Look at this kehechra, like the compromised opinion. Who gave the compromised opinion? The Tanach Rab Meir. Because what were the 3 sizes that they began with? Kezayis, ke'egois, kebeitza. So the middle one, the hechra gavaldik, that's the size of a nut. Weiter says the Gemara says Rabbi Yanai, medoiche ktana shel psamim, people had in their homes. They had mortars, little ones, and pestles. People were constantly crushing. Even nowadays, everything is done in this disposable. I have a pepper, a black pepper that it's fresh. It's still in kernels, and you dray the little thing that you buy that you throw out later, and you crush it in your home. So everyone used to have then a medoicha. Medoicha is a pestle. So if someone has a pestle that they had in their kitchens for spices, and that's a stone, that's a little stone. So says Rabbi Yanai. Now, what is the status of this little stone? First of all, it's not on the level of muksa because it's not a keli. It's not a stone that you found out there in the field. This already is a keli that was designated to be used as a pestle to crush psamim. We're going to call this a keli that is muksa machmas chisaron kis, because since you use this for spices, you don't want for this to have contact b'chlal with anything else. It might ruin the taste of the spices, and kolchchen the kavachaymer, you don't want it to be used for this purpose. And indeed, it's muksa. Now, when did Chazal allow you to take stones if they are not kalim, right? These avanim mikurzalois. But here says Rab Sheishis that im yesh olav eight, if it was used previously, and how would you know that? There is a witness. Who's the witness? Not a person. You look at this pestle and you can see someone used this before. They had no toilet paper. So once it was already used and you can see that it was used previously, now no one is going to use it anymore for the pestle. Let's hope so. For the spices. So now it's no longer muksa machmas chisaron kis. So now mutter, you are allowed to use it. Now we got a big problem.
So these stones were reusable? That's what's going on here?
Oh, now the problem will be, hold on, to reuse a stone, we're not allowed to do that. I get it, since it was used once, no one is going to use it anymore for the pestle, for psamim, so it's no longer designated for a function that is expensive, and no one wants you to touch it for anything else. But you're speaking about using it again. We learned in a brayso, asad at the bottom, maybe asad on the day tachtoiniyos. There are 10 things, 10 behaviors that bring about hemorrhoids. And the Elohim, let's go. Number one is people who eat the leaves of reeds. This time, if they eat a little bit mixed in a lot of other foods, it's not going to affect them. But if you have a zasauda, the way many people today, their meal is greens, vegetables, salad. If you have a salad from leaves of reeds, you might have hemorrhoids. Ba'alik fanim grapevine leaves. Vilulavik fanim shoots of grapevines. Or again, we're going through the 10 items. Umayrige behema, rigid portions of an animal. We're speaking about a tongue. We're speaking about the throat. We're speaking about certain stomachs that are very rigid. They're not naturally smooth if you eat them without melach. Now, of course, for meat to be kosher, you have to salt it. So either it means, as we learned in Chulin, that if you're taking a piece of meat that b'chlal was not processed, you didn't cook it, you didn't roast it, you didn't fry it, as long as you wash off the blood from the outside of it, the dam in its place, remember that whole sugya is called basar, if it was not salted, that meat can give you tachtoiniyos. The shidrei shel dog, if you have the backbone of a fish, the dag maliach, or if you have a fish that was salted, but shalei bishel by kol tzarchei, it wasn't properly or fully cooked. It doesn't mean sushi b'chlal is not cooked. It means it's somewhat cooked. And if a person drinks the sediment of wine, and we're not speaking about the little percent in the wine, you're just drinking shimra yain. Or if a person used either lime or shards of pottery to wipe oneself, that can bring about tachtoiniyos. And let's go with the girsa of the side. That's number 10. If I'm going to use a stone that someone else used, that can cause tachtoiniyos. And then there's 11th. A person who hangs himself in the bathroom. We're not speaking about someone committing suicide. Hanging himself means that nowadays it's good. Nowadays the person rests his lower body on a keli. Let's word it that way. But in China until today, or many other really third world countries, then you squat when you go to the bathroom. Squatting means is that your body is not resting on anything. That's a position that if a person continuously relieves oneself like that, they can come to tachtoiniyos. Kasha is now from the 10th that that brings to tachtonius. That's another issue. So, and we are implying, no, fakert. He says if there's an aid on the pestle, if it was used before and you can see it, then you're good to go. So the Gemara says, like Kasha, when are we not allowed to use someone else's stone? When is it not reusable? When the first guy's body fluids is still moist. That's dangerous. Then it can bring you to tachtonius. Rav Sheshes was speaking about this pestle. It's nothing there. It's the yavish. It's completely dried out. You see that there's a mark on it. Since there is a mark, the balabas will not use it for spices. On the other hand, if it's dry, it's not going to bring you to tachtonius. Then you could reuse it. The iboy sema, even if it's both lach, kan mitzadechot. Mitzadechot means that it was only one side of the pestle was used. So you can use the other side. Oh, and the kan, when the Braisa say it brings you to tachtonius, if it was already used, the base tzeladim, the iboy is never, they have no toilet paper. The iboy sema, hadidei hadachavre, another svarim. If you yourself used it, it's not enough that you know that you use it. There has to be some remnants on it. There has to be a witness on it. Then you can reuse it. If you reused your own, it's not going to bring you to tachtonius. Dr. Daniel. If you use someone else's, then you're already touching someone else's biological waste, and that could bring you to tachtonius. All of this, when can you use this pestle? When there's an aid on it, when you can still notice that it was previously used as toilet paper. So what happens if if it rained on this pestle and the nish tashtishu, and it became a little bit, the traces became, washed away basically from the rain, it's less discernible. Is there a point where now the owner is going to bring it back to its purpose as a pestle, and it becomes muktzah, machmas chisaron kis, amalei, I don't care how much it got washed away, as long as there's some discernible mark, then mutter, like Rashi says in the bottom of the Amid, because they keep in the ma'is, if there's even a reshima, it's disgusting, and therefore and therefore the owner didn't redesignate it as a pestle. Very good. Now, final line of the Amid, Rav Shila from Rav Chizda, turning to Daf Pei Aleph, Amid Beis, Ma'ula ha'aloisom achrov legag, a gewaldige kasha. We're going on weiter. As we explained, as the Achronim speak out, the Hassan Sofer speaks out, and many others, that it's not pshat that these types of stones that were fit for toilet paper are muktzah. And the Chazal says, even though they're muktzah, but for kavod habriyos, you can take the amount that's needed, or if you're going to a fixed latrine, you can take kimalei hayat. No. Lachatchila, they were never goizer muktzah on these stones. Now, here's the question. We're beginning from the premise that certain activities that are considered very difficult to do, it demands of you tircha yesera, extra exertion. That activity may not be done on Shabbos. Midrabanan. The Torah says don't break the lamates malachas, but the concept of Shabbos Pashut being a day of resting begashmias, that is midrabanan, midivrei Kabbalah. Some of them is midrabanans. You have to rest. You can't do extra exertion. Taking stones up onto the gag, most people did not use their roofs as their latrine. And we're not speaking about you walking upstairs. We're speaking about you schlepping stones upstairs. We're beginning with the premise that's called tircha yesera. And indeed, since it's tircha yesera, so there's a havamina. Now the chachamim were goizer muksa on the stones. So it is worse than stam stones. Stam stones that could be used are not included in muksa. Here we're speaking about since you need to have tircha yesera. So Chazal did address these stones. They are muksa. So what? But you don't have toilet paper. And you don't have another area to go with modesty other than going to your gag. We'll speak about them like today. A person goes to the bathroom now and there's no pre-cut toilet paper. What do they do? We'll get to that in a moment. So can you bring it up to the roof? Here it's worse because since there's tircha yesera, they are included in muksa. Do you say that even though it's muktzah, nevertheless, if there's no other option, you can take it up, you can violate muktzah?
Rabbi, why is if tircha yisera is the issue, shouldn't it be an issue either you're allowed to do tircha yisera or not? How does that affect then something being muktzah or not?
Okay, so first of all, that's the way that's the way the Achronim learn it. But okay, I'm sure other people say your way of wording it. If there's a tircha yisera issue, so there's a problem here. So okay, what do you do with the tircha yisera? So Rab Chizda says, "Amalei gadol kaved abriyos." You're asking me whether you're doicha derabanan. Kaved abriyos. Human dignity is so important that it's doichi even a loises Shabbat Torah. Wow, not always, guys, but where do we find that? If you remember the sugya of someone wearing shatnez and brachas, right, and you rip it off them, ein eitzav, ein tvuna, ein chachma neged Hashem. Sometimes we say that, but where do we find an example that kaved abriyos is doichi the loises? So Rashi reminds us that when you have in the portion of Hashavas Haveda, the Torah says, don't make believe like you didn't see the article. We're not speaking about a ganef. We're speaking about a person that doesn't want to trouble. I'm going to find it, and then I'm going to have to announce it. I'll leave it on the street. The Torah says, but there's an extra word. You're going to look away from it. So Chazal learned that actually that pasuk should sometimes be read b'nichusa. Sometimes an example is if you have an elderly person, and it's not lefi kavoidai to schlep that article to pick it up. He never picks up something in the street. So here we say that even though that there is a lab of loy sucha lehisalim, pick it up and announce it, because of kaved abriyos, v'yisalam tameim. So likewise over here, the way Rashi says, even though you can argue that every midrabanan is a doiraisa, how is that? Because the Torah says loy sasur zakt Rashi, loy sasur a pasuk in Parsha Shoftim. So yeah, the Muk says you can say it's a derabanan, but loy sasur. You can say tircha yisera, okay, midrabanan v'loy sasu. Zol zayin, even if it's connected to a doiraisa. Kaved habriyos is doicha that. Wow. So before we go on, just to speak out bekitzer, this is something that, like I said, this is practical. A person can go to the restroom nowadays. Cutting toilet paper involves two potential avos malachis. Number one, you are koireya, you are tearing. And number two, you're machatech, you're cutting to size. Now, just to know that when you are tearing something, almanas litfor, that is the af. Tearing just as an act of kilkul, you're just destroying, you're not planning to resew it, that's already not koreya. Maybe it's not even koreya midrabanan. Okay? And we all accept that tearing toilet paper is, as kilkul, is not koreya midoiraisa. There's also an issue of cutting to size. Cutting to size, according to many poskim, it's a lot worse to cut the toilet paper on the dotted area. They consider that being machatach something to size. Many poskim say it's better to cut it not on the dotted lines. Okay? Just to be aware that the Alter Rebbe paskins that tearing, I'm not talking about cutting, I'm talking about tearing, midoiraisa is only when two items were stuck together and you are unsticking them, which makes it even better. Because here we're not speaking about separating two items that were glued together. At the end of the day, a person should be very careful to make sure that they have cut tissues or napkins or whatever they have before they relieve oneself. But once a person relieved themselves and all you have is the toilet paper roll. So here there's a little bit of a machloikis. According to some poskim, as long as they're not cutting it on the dotted line, they can tear it. And you have many other poskim that consider that act as an act of choitech, because you're cutting it to size. Cutting it to size doesn't mean you need to have 5 inches and not 6 inches. You're tearing it off, and that's the size that you're using to clean yourself. And according to that, it's a bigger problem. And the only solution there will be cutting it k'la'achar yad, right? That's a general rule. If you tear it k'la'achar yad, at max, even though it's an act of kilkel, at max, you're only violating a derabanan, and we apply the din of gadol kaved abriyos shadoicha es loises Shabbat Torah. Let's go right to the Gemara. Yosef ben Eimar, an Eimar is sitting. The Kamer laha shmeitz, and he's repeating this concept that gadol kaved abriyos. So Esved Avin Lemen Eimar azoi. Steht in Abraisa, Rabbi Eliezer Oimer, Meitel Adam Kisam Elofanav, if a person is eating and they have food stuck in between their teeth and having food stuck in between your teeth is considered a kavod habrius issue. Problem is, to get rid of it, you need a toothpick. The toothpicks then was that you would break off a piece of wood, a splinter of wood, a splinter from a chip from wood that's in front of them. So he says that Eliezer says that indeed, a person to clean the food between his teeth, right? He can take a splinter of wood from chips that are in front of him. No, the whole chip to begin with is muktzah. So you're taking a piece off it. You're moving muktzah. When are you allowed to do it? Only element ha'avu shel behem. He's giving an example that they would feed certain chips of wood to animals. So if you have a crib, if you have a feeding trough that you use to feed your animals, and in there you have these woods, so it's already muchan, then it's not muktzah. Then you can take a shtickle to clean your teeth. But if it's not muchan, muktzah. So what do we see from the Chachamim and the Das Rabbim? That even if the issue is only muktzah, which is midrabanan, even though making a toothpick is considered kavod habrius, you may not do it. So they were not matir. So answers the Gemara hachiyashta. You can't compare one case to the other. Hassan over there, adam kivea makim l'suda. You knew from before Shabbos the place of your food. Where are you going to eat? You prepared food. You should have prepared your toothpicks. You didn't do that. Here we're saying that your negligence in the case of taking food out of your teeth is not going to be matir to walk around with a piece of something in between my teeth.
Rabbi, does
but over here, do people designate a place for a beis hakisei? No, they don't. Like we mentioned, no, they don't. It won't help me. I can decide that I'm going to use that latrine. Who says it's going to be available for you? We're not speaking about people that had bathrooms in their homes. Now, this is a very chamadik opinion. We just mentioned above that if a person doesn't have toilet paper today, kala'ach hayad, what are you going to do? Kala'ach hayad, you rip it, not on the dotted area. We're a little bit more makel. Here also you can argue that you didn't know to prepare. And indeed, a person should make sure that they prepare from before Shabbos. And if you didn't do it, most of us have napkins in our homes. We have already other pre-cut items. But he is saying, he's making this concept that negligence to prepare before will result in us being less lenient in the application of gadol kavod habrius. Yes, who was asking a question?
This idea of gadol kavod habrius, it seems like a pretty blanket statement. I mean,
Yes,
where is the...
Good. Okay, just to point out, even you see over here, we apply it now tzvika halacha l'maisa. Even if a person was negligent in not preparing toilet paper, we rely on gadol kavod habrius for toilet paper, but we do not rely on gadol kavod habrius when it comes to a toothpick, and it makes sense. I'm not minimizing the need of cleaning your teeth. It's less of a human dignity issue, and not wiping oneself after the bathroom. That's a bigger human dignity issue. The application of it, is quite awesome, and you need to have great chachamim with shikol hadas and a mesoira, the way Torah Shabbat evolves to know when to apply it and when not to apply it. You may not relieve yourself on a freshly plowed field on Shabbos. Is it because when you are treading on the fresh furrows, you're stepping on it will ruin the furrow? So it says, I don't have the right to ruin your plow. If that would be the issue, then why did Rav Huna speak about Shabbos? Then the Rav Huna should have said a person may not walk on a freshly plowed field, even b'choil. Eloma, walking on a freshly plowed field is not mazik the charisha. Elomishum asavim. The issue is that, listen to this, guys. When you plow a field, automatically moisture comes to the forefront because you wet it, you make charisha, and moisture will cause in a very short amount of time that the stones and the pebbles that are laying in the field, because of the moisture, will shortly have grass growing out from the stone. You ever see these little grass or little foliage that grows out of the rocks? And now hold on, wiping yourself with these rocks might detach the grass from the stone. And now you have an issue of detaching. Or a tool of ktsira. So is that the issue? No, that's not the issue, because that indeed if you have a stone or a rock and on it you have some grass growing, muter lekaneach ba. And I want you to know right away, the reason why it's mutar l'kaneach is not because Reish Lakish holds that you can actually be yadayim, take grass off a stone. No, Reish Lakish paskins like Rab Shimon. Davar she'ein mischaven. Reish Lakish also holds that it's not a psikresha. It's not a psikresha that even if you have a little bit of grass on these stones, if a person is using it for toilet paper, lav dafka, for sure, the grass will become detached. Even, and Reish Lakish says, even though detaching the grass is also midoraisa, which by the way is another big chiddush, because the grass is not connected to the earth. The grass is connected to the stone. Amazing. Nevertheless, it's considered attached. Detaching it is also, but you can do it because, like we mentioned, Rav Shimon, and it's not a psikresha. So weiter, what's Rav Huna? Ela Dilma, maybe the problem is that nokit me'iloi, when you're going to go there, there are furrows. So you have a ridge, you have, the high point, and then you have the valley. Maybe you're going to take the stone to clean yourself when the stone was on the ridge, was high up. And after you'll use it, v'shada l'tatoi, and you're going to throw it in the hole. Ooh, so what did you do? You leveled the indentation. Leveling an indentation, that is the problem. As we learn, the Amar guys, we learned this when we began the sugya, that if you have a hole, and you filled up the hole, if the hole was in the house and you filled up the hole on Shabbos, you have because of boina. If you have an indentation in the field and you fill it up, you have because of chodesh. So Dilma, maybe that was the issue. Gufa says the Gemara we learned about that if you have a stone upon which grass has grown, you are mutar l'kaneach ba. Again, because it's davar she'ein mischaven, to detach it, and it's not psikresha. However, the hatoyos when it Shabbos chayv chatos. Now, chayv chatos means that Reish Lakish ascribes to a novelty here. No, none of the grass is planted in the ground. These stones are already detached. Nevertheless, since it's getting its nourishment from the ground, the grass which is on the rock is being yoinik from the ground, then ripping it off the stone is ki'ilu, you detached it on a da'iraisa level. Amar Rav Papa shma minam. Never is harayim that high parpisa. Now, what is a parpisa? Very important. Rashi, it's somewhere middle of the Amid, a little bit lower than the middle of the Amid, middle of the line. Rashi did a high parpisa. Otzitz nakiv. If you have we'll call a flower pot that's perforated, it's filled with earth, it's laying on the ground, but it's a pot. And why did people have these parpisas? Interestingly, Rashi brings from the Tshuvas of the Goinim, Matzasi, Sha'oisin, Cholsois, that it was common before Rosh Hashanah for Kaparis, that people would weave, they would make baskets, mikapos tamadim from palm leaves. And what would they do with these woven little baskets, right, that have holes, right? That's the nature of weaving something using such a coarse material. And they would fill them up with earth, Rashi says, and with zevel, behema, and with fertilizer. And the chav days, like Tesvavim lives in Rosh Hashanah, 22 days, or 15 days before Rosh Hashanah, oisin kolecha the echad, l'shem kol katan uktana. Every household member would make one individually for every member in the house. Like today, our minig is when you use chickens, you don't use one chicken for the whole household. You use for each one a chicken. And what do they do with this? They would plant something in it, either polamitzri, a certain type of bean, we learned about this above, or any other legume. And as we all know, many of us know, when you plant it in a flower plant, it begins to sprout, it begins to grow. And of Rosh Hashanah, the day before Rosh Hashanah, noitel kol echad shaloi, everyone, means every child was involved in the kaparas. They would take their flower pot, and they would move it around their heads. They would encircle it around their heads 7 times. Our minhag is to do 3, and they would say Zeh tachazeh, Zeh chalifasi, Zeh timurasi, and then they would throw the flower pot in the river. Gavaldik, and that was their kapara. So it was common. Let's go back into the Gemara. So hai parpisa shari l'taltule. You are allowed to move it. You are allowed to move it. What's that? You are allowed to move it. That He holds that since I'm allowed to use this rock to wipe myself, I'm not allowed to rip the grass off it. Okay, that's chayv chatos. But I'm allowed to lift this stone to wipe myself. Now understand something. The grass on the stone is being nourished from the ground the same way the legume in the parpisa is being nourished from the ground. When I lift it, I move it farther away from the ground. I did not do a physical act on a doiraisa level of telisha. I did not, of ktsira. I did not detach it because physically it's in the pot, but it's further away from the ground. It's harder for it to get nourishment. Before it was laying on the ground. Now it's already a couple of inches above the ground. Reish Lakish doesn't have a problem with that. He just does not allow you to rip the grass off the stone, but lifting the stone, which we would argue is Talisha Midrabanan, no, not a problem. It's not a problem. So you can lift the parpi, so you can move it. He's not saying that you can rip the legume out. Ripping the legume out is takechayv chatos, but moving the parpisa is muter. Masel Rav Kahana. Hold on, I know that lifting the stone is not a doiraisa act of detaching because you're not physically ripping out the roots from the ground. But on a derabanan level, it should be asur. And it is asur. Eloma, again, we're learning about kavod abriyas. For derabanans, for sure, we apply kavod abriyas. So mela for kavod abriyas, Reish Lakish allows for you to wipe yourself with such a stone, even though there's grass on it. But the yoimru shalei l'tzayder. And why would you have to move the parpis on Shabbos? And therefore he argues with it. So there's a machlekes whether you can move it or not, whether there's an act of detachment midrabanan or not. Parpisa. Now that finally we're speaking about the parpisa, I want to tell you a din about parpisa. If before Shabbos it was laying on the ground, and you put it on pegs, in other words, you lifted it a little bit, it's harder for it to get nourishment from the ground, then indeed I'm maskim like Rav Kahana. I agree with Rav Kahana. Mechayiv because of Toilish, guys, midrabanan. But midrabanan, you're chayiv. And likewise, on the opposite. So before Shabbos, it was already higher up above the ground. And on Shabbos, the vart is that whatever is growing in this flower pot is deriving its nourishment from the ground, not only from the earth in the pot, from the ground. You put it closer to the ground, midrabanan, that's pshat here, you're chayiv because of neiteya. We have to finish this sugya. Also, look on there, becheres b'Shabbos. Oh, entering the sugya of kishuv. You may not use a pottery shard on Shabbos to wipe yourself. Now, just to make it clear, when we're speaking about a shard of pottery, as we'll speak out, many people use them to transfer oil, a little bit of water. It's not like a stone. It's better than a stone. It's not a keli at all. Oh, but you can't use it. And we have to understand, why did Rabbi Yechanan say it? My time, and what's the sakana? Because the sharp edge of the shattery pot can be so sharp that when a person is wiping oneself, as we said in the beginning of the sugya, that they would actually scrape off the excrement, they might cut their rectal opening, and that's a sakana. If that's the reason, then why on Shabbos? Afilu b'chol nami. Ela mishum kshafim. Kshafim means that if a person has their remains on a shard, if a sorcerer, if a machashev gets hold of that shard, they have the power to hurt, to be mazik, alidei kishuv, the person from whom the excrement came from. Again, it's a mystical fear. Well, again, afilu b'chol nami, then you should never be allowed to use a shard. The machashev cannot damage the person if it's on a paper or if it's on a stone. It's only if it's on a piece of earthenware. Elamat must be because since it's very sharp, you might cut some hairs off the body, but that's also not a problem. That should not be the reason of Rabbi Yechanan. Why is that? Because since your kavanah is to wipe yourself, you might cut off hairs. That's a classical davar she'emes chavin. And
didn't we say it's psig reisha?
Huh?
Didn't we say it's a psig reisha?
So we'll see in a moment, a minute. So what's the problem? And the question is based on the premise that we paskin like Rab Shimon. So they almost wanted to machavek with Rabbi Yechanan. They were not in that moment. They were not trying to explain Rabbi Yechanan. And no. So Amar Lohur Rav Nasan bar Oishia. Here's the chaim. Gavra Rabba Amamosa, the great man, Rabbi Yochanan said something. Don't slug it up and walk away and close the topic. We have to explain what he meant. Name about Tama. I'll give you the reason. Indeed, the issue is either because you might cut yourself. The issue is also because of a fear of kishuf. And these issues have nothing to do with Shabbos specifically. And you may not use it even b'choil. And Rabbi Yochanan didn't mean b'Shabbos, only Shabbos. He meant, when you buy b'choil, the asur, sakana, kishuf, b'Shabbos. But you might think that if your only option is using a stone that is in its natural state, that isn't even a keli, versus using this shard, the ikatoides kli olav, shaper dummy, on Shabbos, maybe this is better. Maybe the sakana is not that great. The fear of kishuv is not that great. And you have to, everything has an advantage and a disadvantage. Use this better than a stone. That's what Rabbi, even on Shabbos, don't use it. Stones are better because of the sakana aspect, because of the kishuv aspect. That is one way. Rava masni lo mishum asharas nimen. When Rava learned this din of Rabbi Yochanan, he says Rabbi Yochanan said it because you're going to remove hair. He knew that's the reason. And Rava had a kasha, and he remained with the kasha. And on that, Rava asked, the kasha lay, the Rabbi Yochanan, umiyam Rabbi Yochanan, also lekanech, b'cheres b'Shabbos, alma, kum terchois, dovashem eschav and asur. So Shleim, it must be that Rava felt that there is no psik reisha, and the only reason is because he would hold like Rabbi Yehuda. No, Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan already told us that the halach is kastam Mishnah. That's a klal. And where do we find from a stam Mishnah that we pass like Rab Shimon a Mishnah Nazir, Vitnam Nazir, who one of the three surim is he may not cut his hair. And however, Nazir is chayf if he may rub his hair with shampoo. The shampoo then was sand. The shampoo then was who knows what. He can rub his hair because his intent is not to cut his hair. His intent is not to pluck out his hairs. It's a davar she'ein mischaven, no psik reisha. Stam Mishnah Kerab Shimon. Also, umefasfeis, he's allowed to disentangle his hair, be a dayim with his hands, but he may not use a shayrik, he may not use a comb, a hard brush. We already spoke about this earlier in the Masechta, that we may not on Shabbos use a comb or a hard brush because of this, because it's takal davar she'ein mischaven, but it's a psik reisha. And since he passes like a Stam Mishnah, so it muzayin that Rabbi Yochanan subscribes to Rab Shimon. So it doesn't make sense. He had no explanation in Rab Shimon. And therefore the Gemara says, it must be that the right answer, the good answer, the mechaberta, is like Rav Nassan Bar Aboishia, that the problem he had wasn't Shabbos related. It was all 7 days in the week related. We would have thought that will be mated on Shabbos because at least it's a keli. A shard was used to transfer, to put oil or water on it. And now let's finish the sugya today with Mike Shafim. What's this Shafim issue? This is fantastic. Like the following story. That Rab Chizda and Abba Barafuna have a cause. They were once going on a little boat. And on the boat, there was a certain matronisa, there was a certain noble woman that wanted to get involved with them. The way the Gemara words it is, she asked them, she told them, let me sit with you. She wanted to be part of their chavra, but they did not allow her to join the group. So she became very upset with them. And she knew how to do kishuv. So one trick she did is that Omra Ihi Milsa, she said certain words, she said alachash, and asarta la'arba, and she made the boat stop. Oh, so what did they do? Omru Inu Milsa, so they also said something, and Sharu, and they released the boat. They had the antidote to kishuv. Says Rashi, the last line in the Amid, Omri Iu Milsa, al yidei shem tahara, that there are certain words that are called shem kodesh, it's called white magic, and that countered her dark arts, her dark black magic. Says the holy Baal Shem Tov here on the Gemara, no, you're not learning the Gemara correct. It didn't say a shame of God's holy names. It's really, you can say that Rashi meant it, but listen to what the Baal Shem Tov says. He says the Gir says not Omru Inu Milsa. Don't read the Milsa means a thing, it's a word. The Gemara really wrote Omru Inu Mem Lamed Sof. Milas, and the Milas can mean a word, and Milas, says the holy Baal Shem Tov, is a acronym to the pasuk we have in Mishpatim, Mechashefa Loisachaya, Mem Lamed Sof. It means if someone is putting a spell of kishum on you, the antidote, the Gemara is giving you the antidote. Say the pasuk Mechashefa Loisachaya. And that made the boat move. In the last line of the Amid, and she was trying to do other spells on them, and it wasn't getting them. And she was frustrated. And she told them, my Abed Luchu, how can I get you? You're not allowing me to get you. And DAF pay base. And now we're learning 3 activities that if a person does them, they open themselves to be under the spell of Kishuv. So it's good to know never to do them. You guys don't do any of the 3. Number 1, you're not using a shard to wipe yourselves. Maybe it was sharper, maybe it was, but they don't do it. So I don't have that way of getting to you. The next thing that a person should not do, because if you do it, you open yourself to the spell of Kishuv. You never kill a louse while it is on your clothing. We learned about this before Nida. And the third is that if you have a bundle, a gardener who he was the one that harvested vegetables like onions or garlics, he puts them in a bundle. If a person takes one out of the bundle, then the person opens themselves to Kishuv. The way you take the vegetables out is you cut the bundle and all of them are you allowed to scatter. And they always did that. They never took one vegetable out of the bundle that was made by the gardener. And therefore, I have no way of getting to you. Just to appreciate the concept that if we are all bundled together, the Jewish people, and all in the positive, that we were educated by the Rebbe never to take a Jew out. We never expel anyone. Everyone is included. And that is the derech which makes us protected from any type of kishuv spell. A lot more, God willing, to be continued.
Rabbi, I have a question. We say God covered the brias. What about like an electric toilet, for example, where you don't have a choice?
So you have to know, first of all, if electricity is deraisa or derabanan. And if electricity is deraisa, even though the Gemara says God will cover the brias, that it's doicha lois Shabbat, at least I mentioned it, there's a big problem with that statement. Which means it's not a blanket statement. Svika said that it's not a blanket statement because that was the whole sugi we learned. Just I don't know if it was in Shabbos. I think it was in Brachas. Someone was walking down the street. It was in Brachas. A woman was walking down the street with a red dress. Red is always asur. So an Amayra, thinking she's a Jewish woman, he ripped off her dress. Remember that? And that was, how was he allowed to do it? God will cover the brias. They told him that. So he responded, ein chachma, the ein tfuna, the ein das, keneged Hashem. You're not allowed to do that. So it's not, we don't say on Isur that we
but this is the same concept. If somebody has to relieve themselves.
I'm telling you, halacha l'maisa. We don't apply kavod habriyas by Yisur d'oraisa. I mentioned
Rabbi, wouldn't that automatically put it on the level of a derabanan?
No, you over here you want to rip it. Here you want to rip it. Here you want to rip the toilet paper.
No, but Samach's talking about the electric toilet, right? Which even if you say that it's somehow electricity is a makab, whatever it is, a makab patish or something like that. Or,
let's call this obsecration. It's a Davashem Eschavin obsecration. You can't say.
But here you have stones, and they have to use it because they have to.
Stones is muksa midrabanan. Stones is muksa midrabanan. And according to those Amoraim, Shlomo pointed that out, that held that if you wipe yourself with that stone, you're going to for sure cut your body hairs, goizes, you're not allowed to use it. The only reason that why they were saying it was okay is because it's not obsecration. If you stand up, again, if electricity is d'oraisa, and it is according to the Periscope today, whether it's makab patish, whether it is a bishul, however you're going to call this, then by Isur d'oraisa, we don't say Godel kavod habriyas. Listen, guys, I'm speaking theoretically. Maybe other places can say otherwise. Could be. You never know. But as a rule, we don't use.
I just know if you run into a bathroom and you see it's an electric toilet, you're in big trouble.
Well, you're not in trouble. You might have to relieve yourself and sit there until the end of Shabbos.
But most of those toilets, Samach, have a button where you can manually flush it.
Thank you. Good Shabbos.
Rabbi, so wait, what are we doing with learning? What's the schedule?
If I'll be able to go ahead, I have to go ahead to DAF. For sure, we learn now Pei Aleph. We have to learn Pei Beis, Pei Gimel, Matzah Shabbos and Sunday. I'm going to try to also learn, I'll make the cheshbon, which two dafim we're going to lose. If we're going to lose Pei Ches and Pei Tes, let's say, then I would theoretically love to learn Pei Ches Matzah Shabbos. Learn Sunday morning Pei Beis and Pei Gimel.